and producer.
Okay. And how long did you do that?
5 years.
Okay. And I understand that you received a number of awards while you were in the TV business?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point, excuse me, you transitioned from the TV business to work in the Vancouver Police Department, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And how long did you work there?
12 years.
Okay. And though you were, let me ask it this way, safe to say, at least by your undergraduate degree and initial training, that would not classify you as a scientist based on that particular set of experiences, correct?
No, they were foundational courses.
All right, but you consider yourself to be scientist based on any subsequent training you've had, is that safe to say?
Yes.
All right, so we adhere to various aspects of the scientific method, correct?
Yes.
All right, particularly those which would adhere to peer review?
Yes.
Safe to say?
Yes.
And let's, particularly as it would relate to any new or novel idea or concept, safe to say?
Well, the concept of novel or new science is something that we understand. There are new methodologies that eventually make its way from introduction into the mainstream of analysis after publication and study and peer review.
Right. Well, and that's what I want to talk about. For example, the process of peer review and the process of the scientific method is consistent across a lot of scientific disciplines, correct?
Well, the question of peer review is, number one, has the underlying science undergone peer review? Secondary to that, has the particular report that's been produced been reviewed by a peer?
Right, but at this point I'm talking about the general, the general underlying theory and principle.
Depending on the nature of the scientific examination, yes.
Okay. Well, let's give an example. For example, the medical field utilizes peer review and scientific method, correct?
Well, I don't know much about that field, apart from a layperson's perspective, perhaps. I understand there's medical journals. There's publications, correct. There's peer review.
Correct. Well, and the basic idea behind that is, let's say, for example, again, just using that as simply for illustrative purposes, if I'm a doctor and I have a novel or idea of a theory that perhaps a no-sugar diet will reduce the rate of cancer growth, and I wish to start utilizing that belief or theory, I would publish it maybe in a peer-reviewed journal. True?
It's outside my area of expertise. I'm not going to disagree with you, but I don't know.
Okay. But would that be, let me ask you that, new or novel ideas in your field, would you also engage a peer review journal to be able to do that?
I think that if, I don't engage in newer novel ideas. I think the work that I do has already been published by others and been practiced by others and is generally accepted among my scientific community before I would engage in it.
You're saying that the idea of headlight spread pattern analysis to be able to identify one individual vehicle to the exclusion of all others is generally accepted in the field?
Yes.
Okay. You're not the only one that has testified to that?
No.
Let me ask you this. Is it identified as a specialized field in the FBI's handbook?
Well, I got my training from the FBI on reverse projection for this purpose. It is defined by the International Association for Identification and the Law Enforcement and Emergency Services Video Association in its glossary. Headlight spread pattern analysis is specifically identified, and it's discussed in most of the classes that I have attended and taken. It's also well published in a number of, I've got references here for you if you'd like them.
So let me ask you this. Again, for example, the Handbook of Forensic Services.
Your Honor, Mr. Friend was just trying to answer the question and pass something to Mr. Bouchette. You may have missed it, but he was trying to
give it back. He said he had something, but he said he was going on with his question, so he was leaving that, I assume.
Yes, sir. Your Honor.
Okay.
Move on to the next question.
All right.
Yes, sir. All right. So, for example, the FBI publishes a Forensic Services Handbook. Are you aware of that?
The FBI publishes a number of documents. I'm not aware of all of them.
Okay. Is that one of them?
The Forensic Sciences Handbook?
Correct.
I'd have to take a look at it, please.
In other words, if somebody is looking to engage the services of the FBI,
This is for the FBI lab. The FBI lab does not do video analysis. The organization in the FBI, the unit in the FBI is the Forensic Audio Video Image Analysis Unit. It's not part of the lab.
And you were an FBI employee?
No. No, but I trained them, and I've taken classes from them.
And, for example, I'll move on just a minute. Move on just a little bit. When did you go from the Vancouver Police Department into your own business?
I had my own business before I was with the Vancouver Police Department. I was doing video processing for agencies in the area. That's where I got my interest in policing from a forensic perspective. So I was doing that work before I became a police officer, and then throughout my tenure as a police officer, I was doing video work, and until I took over as the head of the video unit, then it was full-time.
Okay, so you were moonlighting for a period of time, and then you went to do this full-time, is that correct?
Well, what do you mean by moonlighting?
I just mean in addition to your employment with the police department.
Well, before that, I had a video production company where I was doing, on the side from my broadcast work, I was doing casework for police agencies. Again, that's how I got interested in the police department, more interested in being a police officer, but because of my experience, I would be pulled off the street to do video work on major crime cases. Back then, it was videotape until it evolved and transitioned into digital. So when I was in charge of the video unit, we were now kind of migrating between digital and analog.
And what I'm asking is, when did you go full-time into the company that you're running now?
Full-time?
Correct.
I left the department in 2000, and I was hired by an American company that produced video examination tools for the U.S. government, the military. I managed their forensic division for 7 years, and during that transition, I was there for 7 years. So sort of at the end of it, I started my company to go full-time. So I basically stepped from that business after 7 years, doing the same kind of thing. I was representing their tools in video analysis cases. And then I just stepped into my full-time work in January of 2007 doing this. But I had been, it's hard to find the definition or the time when one was taking up more of the other.
Okay, fair enough. But you, at this point, this is how you earn your living. This is your full-time job, correct?
Yes.
As opposed to, sometimes we see experts that are professors or something along those lines that are called in to testify. You are a full-time private expert in forensic video analysis. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And how many employees do you have at your company?
When I did this work, I had 5 employees. I'm trying to retire, so I'm trying to transition down. I now have 2 full-time employees, but my other employees, I migrated to a software company that we run in forensics, so I can call on them as needed. So it's hard to say how many I have right now. We're actually expanding in that other area, and I can utilize their assistance, which I do. So, you know, I would say that when I did this job, I had 5 full-time employees that were working on forensics.
Now, let me ask you this. Obviously, your customers in some situations you mentioned are defense attorneys, correct?
Yes.
Sometimes civil lawyers, either on the plaintiff or defendant side.
That's correct.
And sometimes obviously prosecution.
Yes.
Now, in all those cases, the service or the value that you offer the client is obviously the expertise that you consult with them on, correct?
Yes.
Obviously, you provide visual aids, correct?
That's right.
Obviously, you're used to testifying in a court, correct?
Yes.
And I notice that whenever you give a response, you look over to the jury. That's part of the experience that you have and part of what you're offering, whoever your customer may be, right?
Well, my responsibility is to the jury, not to my client.
Exactly, and that's,
yes.
Like I said, you're not, you don't get tripped up easy on the stand, right?
I'm as clear as I can be.
I understand. So you do this a lot, in other words. Part of your value is that you testify in courtrooms a lot.
I understand my duty to the court, yes.
All right, now I want to go into, let me ask you this. sometimes the prosecution spent a fair amount of time asking you that how you came to be involved in this case. You remember that?
Yes.
All right. Sometimes you reach out to the prosecution to be able to offer your services at that point.
No.
You've never reached out to the prosecutor to see if they could utilize your services?
Not that I recall.
About on the AutoZen case?
No, I never reached out to the prosecution in that case.
You did not?
No, I didn't.
Was that a point of controversy as to whether or not you did or didn't?
No.
It never was?
No.
It was never raised?
That I reached out to the prosecution?
Correct.
No.
And the initial phase of being retained, you didn't?
No.
Okay. All right, then let me ask you this. In regards to the expertise that you have you ever been, or have you ever had issue with taking your field of expertise, the forensic video analysis, and trying to expand that into some type of area that you were not qualified to do? What I'm asking is, have you run into criticism for doing that?
You know, have I been personally criticized for doing that? I'm not sure. Not that I recall, but if you give me a specific, for instance, you asked about the AutoZen case. No, I did not reach out to the prosecution. The FBI that was prosecuting, Department of Justice prosecuting, reached out to me. I said no. I was already working as a consultant for the police agency involved in that case, so I said no about 3 times until I was then asked by my client, the city that was doing a defense, if I would please work for the prosecution. So I'm not, and I know that there was a point of criticism of that, but the questions like yours were inaccurate. So I'm not sure, that's why I said no. I was never reached out by the prosecutor, or I never reached the prosecution, but I'm unsure of what you're asking here.
Mateo, let me go to another case. Do you recall an investigation into the death of a man named Robert Zikansky?
Yes.
Okay. And that involved the death of a man at the Vancouver airport, correct?
Correct.
And there was an altercation between him and airport officials, correct?
Between him and the RCMP. That's Royal Canadian Mounted Police, yes.
Okay. So the police officials, and he ultimately died as a result of that altercation, is that correct?
Correct.
So an investigation was initiated by the Attorney General of British Columbia into that death, is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure where the investigation started. Ultimately, it resulted in a public inquiry.
But, okay, so it was a public inquiry, but you provided testimony in conjunction with that investigation, correct?
I provided testimony at the public inquiry, yes.
And your testimony dealt with you were looking at a video and ascertaining the number of steps that Mr. Zikansky had taken, correct?
Correct.
All right, and you testified to what, utilizing your techniques that you testified about today in that case?
No. I was asked if I could measure how far he moved. I said, no, I couldn't. That's photogrammetry. I did no photogrammetric measurements. I couldn't do it. I could just see that there was motion, 3 motions forward, not steps, motions.
Okay, 3 motions. You testified as to 3 motions.
Correct.
Right? And did you receive, do you ever review the commission report in that case?
I did.
Okay. And were they critical of your involvement in that case?
The hearing commissioner asked me on the stand to give a measurement. I didn't do a measurement. As a result of that, he wouldn't accept my observations that there was motions forward because there was no measurement. Quite frankly, I agree with him. I told him on the stand that I really can't help you. And so he said I wasn't helpful. I agree with that decision.
Well, yeah, they said your verification methodology was flawed, correct?
Well, I did none. So he asked me if I did any. I said no, so I can't help you. So as a result of that, the observation that he criticized was the movement, and I quite frankly agree with him. I couldn't offer any of that movement.
Okay. Well, did you say you didn't offer anything?
I didn't offer any measurement.
Okay. So if they were to say that your verification methodology was flawed, would that be a mistake on their part?
Yes. Yeah. I didn't do any verification. And I think that's what his criticism was. He made observations that there was motion, but you can't measure it. I said yes, I can't. So he rejected it, which is fine. I think that's probably a good decision.
I want to talk about the organization LEVA, which you mentioned earlier before. The It's the Law Enforcement, I'm sorry, what were the second two letters?
And Emergency Services Video Association.
Now, this is primarily, I know it's not exclusively a law enforcement organization. Those people, most of the people that receive the certifications through at least that organization are primarily law enforcement. Is that correct?
I'm not sure now because I'm no longer doing the certifications.
And was it at any point primarily law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. And, for example, a common scenario in that situation is, say the police department runs into these issues with video identification. They may send somebody to LEVA to become certified and work in-house in the police department. Is that common?
Well, the goal is that anybody working for a police agency, a law enforcement agency, or any private individual who is examining video for these purposes should get training. And so LEVA is the body that's providing, one of the bodies that's providing that level of training.
So yes, is that safe to say?
A little bit different characterization from what you asked. Because you asked about comparison. They may or may not be doing comparison work. They may simply be processing video, producing exhibits for court, making copies.
But anything that would kind of fall into the category of forensic video analysis?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. So,
There are individuals who don't do any analysis. They simply are technicians. So there's a certification for forensic video technician. Prior to that, there's just somebody who is producing exhibits. They may want to take one of the classes to make sure they're producing the exhibits correctly. The analysis portion is a much more involved program. It's more of a 4 or 5 year, almost a master's level program where they have to take 200 and I think it's 80 some hours of training to become an analyst, plus peer review, plus boarding. It's quite involved.
and that's what I'm referencing. The actual people that receive this LEVA designation as certified forensic video analysis, even most of those are primarily law enforcement, correct? And I know there's different organizations, but I'm only talking now specifically.
Yeah, you asked him multiple questions here for the record. If you want, allow him to answer a question before you ask another question, or change it,
Well,
please.
At this point, I cannot know because I'm not involved in the management of that program anymore.
would that have been the case when you were involved in the management of the program?
At the time when I was involved in the certification, the management, most of them would be law enforcement, yes.
Now, and again, LEVA is a private organization, correct?
Yes, its board of directors are all law enforcement. It's a nonprofit.
So, in this, like any private organization, you can create different certifications, correct? This is not an accredited university, or any, excuse me, an accredited program of any kind.
It's accredited by the University of Indianapolis. When it was put together under the University of Indianapolis. Their training was accredited.
But that has only come in very recently, correct?
No, that was at the very beginning of the program.
It was 2000.
4, I believe, between 4 and 7 in that area.
Let me ask you this, what are the other organizations that you're a member of?
The International Association for Identification.
Now, we also talked about a common example is of the use of this technique is the convenience store. I think Ms. Livesay mentioned to you identifying individuals on the convenience store cameras. You recall that?
I recall a question about a convenience store and an individual in a convenience store. Yes.
So let me take you back. So we've got a video store camera with an individual that's identified that we can see on the video camera. Utilizing the techniques, you can, for example, pinpoint or try to measure, say, how tall the individual is, correct?
That might be possible. It's one of the things that we are asked to do, and we may consider doing it depending on the system.
Sometimes you might can tell, like you said, different colors that may be present or the characteristics of, say, a shirt.
Correct.
What you'd be doing. All right. And what you're utilizing with this headlight spread pattern analysis is trying to take the same measurements that you utilize in that convenience store example to the application of vehicle headlights. Is that correct?
No.
It's not?
No, it's different.
Okay. But it's still a comparison discipline, correct?
Yes.
So like I said, it's a comparison discipline wherein you're utilizing different techniques to analyze image or video number 1 with image or video number 2, correct?
In a broad sense, yes.
Very good. I know that's broad. But like any comparison discipline, it's critical to get any of the factors or variables in the first image as close to identical as you can in the second image in order to be able to do your comparison, correct?
the ideal circumstance is to replicate the same recording conditions.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else relating to, like I said, this discipline maybe is published, say for example, textbooks or things of that nature regarding this headlight spread pattern analysis?
Yes.
Who would that be?
The U.S. Department of Transportation, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They published a document called Sensitivity Analysis of Headlight Parameters Affecting Visibility and Glare, December 2008. They went through a whole series of explanations and testing as to why headlight spread pattern was different from vehicle to vehicle. I've got a whole list of publications.
Yeah, if you're going to ask him a question, you're going to let him answer the question. All right? Don't interrupt, please.
The Forensic Imaging and Multimedia Glossary covering computer evidence recovery, Forensic Audio, FA, Forensic Photography, FP, and Forensic Video, FV, version 7, published July 15, 2008, defines headlight spread pattern analysis for the purpose of photographic video comparison. The document that the publication by the National Highway Transportation Authority was written by Y. Akashi, F. Hugh, and J.D. Bullough, and they're with the Transportation Authority. And they go into a number of observations, including a description of high-intensity discharge. Those are HID lights, and how they're different from one another, and the circumstances by which they would be different. They go into details about composite patterns on headlights as to why headlight from one vehicle of the same make and model will be different from another because of humidity inside the lens, because of wear and tear on the roadway, and because of the canting of the light for traffic. I have a document here done by the Dane County Sheriff's Office by Deputy Scott Kuntz, who took about 60 Crown Vics, brand new, off there before they put the police paint on it, and they did a headlight spread pattern analysis on brand new Crown Vics. All of them had different headlight spread patterns, even off the assembly line. I've got.
Does that satisfy your question?
Yes, sir. So there was a study through the Highway Transportation Authority, you mentioned that?
Yes.
Okay, and I think you had one from the Sheriff's Department that you had?
Yes.
Okay.
And more here if you want me to keep going.
Not at this point. Let me ask you this, what I'm trying to get to, what about, when we're talking about publications, did you know Dr. John Russ from the University of North Carolina?
I know Dr. John Russ very well. We're friends, yes.
Okay. And did you talk to him in 2015 regarding the utilization of headlight spread pattern analysis?
Oh, I've talked to so many people about that over the years. I don't recall specifically.
Did you talk to him and say that you could visualize and provide the make and model of the vehicle from the headlight spread pattern?
May I see what you're referring to, please?
It's referencing this paragraph right here. Excuse me.
So this is his publication, Forensic Uses of Digital Imaging, 2nd edition. And so in here he quotes me. Let me just read it for a moment because I've never seen this.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. I'm reading his explanation of comparison of light characteristics, and then he gets into an area dealing with paint and how paint chips can be identified, by forensic analysis. And he just makes a brief mention about 3D scenes, so that's three-dimensional reconstruction, usually using a scanner, and that's one of the things that we do, and then two-dimensional images that are captured from CCTV, and then he writes about the pattern of light and flare off of a headlight, which is accurate, captured to a surveillance camera at night, is used to do that, and then he's not quoting me, he's just saying, I am one example of an analyst that does that kind of work, but it's not a direct quote.
Okay. Well, I know it's not a direct quote. He references that he spoke to you in 2014, correct?
2015.
2015.
But he just uses that as a reference. He says, this is done in the industry. Here, Grant Fredericks is an example of someone who does this. But he's not quoting me, and he's not saying he had a conversation with me.
By saying does this means identifies the make and model of the vehicle, correct?
That's his paraphrase. I don't recall talking to him specifically about the methodology. He just knows that the identification of a headlight pattern is one of the things that is done to assist in the evaluation of whether comparison can be done on a vehicle. So I just don't want to overstate what he's written here. He's describing a well-known methodology, and he's just saying, and Grant Fredericks does this as well. So
right. He says Grant Fredericks does this as in identify make and models, correct?
Well, you'll have to talk to Dr. Russ about what specifically he was referring to. And what I do is I look at reflection of light, and if that leads to a comparison of vehicles and an identification of make and model, which seems reasonable given the testing that we've done, where we exclude all other models, then I think he's accurate in that.
Let me ask you this: with regard to this, your example in this particular case, we mentioned a moment ago that a lot of things can affect the headlight spread pattern. You mentioned the humidity in the headlight casing, correct?
Yes, if a headlight casing is breached, there's supposed to be a vacuum there, and it's breached and there's humidity, it will cause oxidation of the lens composite, and it will begin to change colors, it will begin to diffuse the light, and it will completely change the headlight spread pattern. A tiny little bit of oxidation will cause the pattern to completely change.
So the headlight spread patterns can be very sensitive, correct, to any type of effect?
Very sensitive, yes.
So like even on the exterior of the headlight, if there is a certain degree of dirt, that can affect it, correct?
It could, yes.
Or if there is some mud on the exterior of the headlight casing, that could affect it, correct?
It could.
And it's very difficult, if not impossible, to ever account for any of those exterior factors that may be there that could affect the headlight spread pattern if you don't conduct the analysis close in time to the event.
If
yes or no, I'd be happy to.
He explained it. You don't have to just answer yes or no. You can explain his answer, Mr. Boucher.
If there were an obstruction on the headlight of the questioned vehicle, and that obstruction and it was significant, was not present when the police did the drive-by, the pattern would look different.
Right. So in other words, if we're looking at image number one and say that there was, for whatever reason, a certain degree of mud on the exterior of the casing, and then at some point later on, that same degree of mud was not on the exterior, it could have an effect on the headlight spread pattern.
We have to be really careful when we talk about a degree. What degree? If it's 100% blocked out, absolutely. If it's 1%, 2%, I mean, those are different degrees. So it would have to be a significant obstruction enough to cause a difference.
Okay. But you can never rule it out, right?
We can't ever say what level of obstruction. What I can say is that they appeared to be identical. Therefore, I would say the same level of obstruction, if there would be there, and if there was no level of obstruction, then that would explain, again, why they're the same.
And in this case, by the time you got involved, the vehicle had already been transferred to another owner, is that correct?
I'm unsure about that. I know that the headlights had been changed out.
The headlights have been changed out?
Yes.
Okay. let me ask you this. By the time you did your evaluation and conducted your review, how long, well, let me ask you this, when was that?
That would have been January, I believe, of 2015.
So this is about a year after the event of the unknown vehicle.
Correct. And that would have been why I wouldn't have been confident about, or even probably have suggested, doing the headlight spread pattern analysis. That length of time, and then coupled, it really became no question. Once the headlights had been removed, after the vehicle was seized by the police, the headlights were removed for some purpose and then placed back. That fact would have changed the headlight pattern no matter what, so that exercise could not have been done. Fortunately, the investigators did their drive-by with the vehicle pattern, with the vehicle, changed the headlights. That then provided me with what I would have done in any case.
But even that review that they did and the drive-by that they did was done in January of 2014, right? February of 2014. Well, excuse me, I think it was February.
I think it was February of 2014. From what I could see, the conditions, the lighting conditions were very, very close. We're close enough for my examination.
Okay. But it was several months from the event.
2 months.
2 months.
Yes.
So, I mean, really, in your report, you can't say for sure or identify or be able to speak to what the conditions were of the exterior of the headlight casing at or near December 17th, December 18th, 2013.
That's correct.
But we know if there was any variation to those effects on the exterior of the headlight casing between the time of December 17th of December 17th, December 18th, and late February, that could have had an effect on the headlight spread pattern analysis.
And if it had an effect, then it would be different, and I would have excluded it.
Let me ask you this. This video, and we heard earlier testimony, this was about this was a Walmart system, I think about $100, she said. Is the imaging sort of consistent with what you would expect from that type of?
Yes.
So this is not a professional or high-grade, high-quality security camera?
No, there's not a lot of difference. Well, yes.
All right, that's fine. All right. Another factor in trying to analyze these headlight spread patterns too, one of the factors is the degree of the resolution of the video.
Yes.
Correct? All right. Another factor is going to be the distance from the camera to the whatever lighting source or whatever object you're trying to analyze. Correct?
Yes.
All right. And in this case, the road and the truck was almost at the outer limits of the visual area. Correct?
Sorry, in which video? We're talking about 8:14?
Correct.
No, by outer limits, you mean as the vehicle goes left to right and then goes off camera view?
Well, I just mean there's a video, and right up close we see some parked cars, and then some point further back is where we see the road.
Well, I see what you're saying. So you mean distance from the camera?
Correct.
I wouldn't say that's outer limits. There's one parked vehicle in the driveway, and then beyond that is the road. Yes.
But it's safe to say the vehicle of the road is not up close to the camera, correct?
It's correct.
Now, let me ask you this. You mentioned that you utilized, I believe it was 11 vehicles in this study?
Yes.
And you were able to exclude different makes and models, such as Chevy's Silverado, and I think there were a couple others.
Yes, there were 11.
But how many of those were Ford F-150?
3, I believe, 3 or 4.
But there was no large-scale statistical modeling of Ford F-150s to be able to say that, apply it to this particular case.
Correct.
Now, F-150 obviously is a common truck.
Yes.
Right. You found it to be common here in Horry County? Correct?
Yes.
Now,
And statistically, the audit that I did of 15,000 vehicles, there was only one other one of the 15,000. So only one that matched that description of the known, actually 2. One was the questioned, and then one was the vehicle towing the boat.
Let me ask you, has that been published in any peer-reviewed journal for review by others in the industry?
It's a statistical analysis of the movement on that roadway. So for that purpose, it wasn't produced for publication purposes.
And that dealt with all kinds of vehicles, correct?
Yes. It dealt with every vehicle that went back and forth. So we weren't discerning, we got everything.
That wasn't where you were seeking to, those weren't 15,000 F-150s that you were comparing to see if all the F-150s had different degrees of spread.
You asked me how common it was. I was saying there was only 2 F-150s in the entire week that went by that road.
So a few basic questions. Obviously, from the video, we can't tell who's in the car, correct?
No, we cannot.
And you also mentioned that the part of the video you were looking at was a video provided to you by the mate, correct?
I'm sorry?
Part of the video that was provided to you was provided by the South Carolina mate team.
Yes.
And they were unable to ascertain any information other than the class and characteristics of the vehicle. Is that true?
I had no conversation with them about their observations or opinions. I don't know.
Not one way or another?
I don't know one or the other. No.
Just a moment.
Sure.
Further questions?
Yeah, well, redirect.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. Mr. Fredericks, Jaron asked you several questions about headlight spread pattern, down that line of questioning. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Tell this jury, is that the only thing you compared between the vehicle, the question one, at the time that was unknown going down 814 and Mill Pond? Was that the only thing you compared to the defendant's truck?
No.
Okay, tell them all what you compared to ultimately draw your conclusion.
The goal is to eliminate, if possible. So the first elimination would be make, model, and year. The make, model, and year references characteristics on the vehicle, references the physical features, the length of the vehicle, and any reflections like the door handles, those kind of things. So if I could determine that the question vehicle did not have those basic class characteristics, then I could eliminate the vehicle and say it can't be, it's not the same vehicle. Then going through to say, okay, does the question vehicle have all of the same class characteristics, make, model, year, color, and type of headlight? Not reflection, just type of headlight. Then we can say, well, it does have all the same, therefore it cannot be eliminated. Now we look to uniqueness. What's unique about it? At this point, it's the pattern of the reflection on the roadway. So that would be the secondary process. So we still have to go through the first process.
Before you even looked at the headlight spread pattern, you already knew that it was a black truck, it had 4 doors, it had a toolbox on it. So you already knew all that was identical to the question truck.
As far as class characteristics, I knew that they could not be eliminated, that it might be the same. The weight that is applied to the observations would be the toolbox. And then separate, I treat the Walmart video completely separately from that video, but in that video we also have the cutting saw in the back of the vehicle. That, and I looked, could that cutting saw be visible in the known vehicle when we did our test from those camera locations? Due to light, it could not be visible, so I can't know whether or not. But the toolbox is a limited class characteristic. That's kind of how we define characteristics, because there are a lot of vehicles with toolboxes, but not all vehicles of that make, model, and year have toolboxes. Right. So we'd say it's a limited class characteristic. I wouldn't refer to it as a unique characteristic. This is all part of the process of doing photographic video comparison with the goal of eliminating first and then going through that hierarchical process to find uniqueness.
Okay, and ultimately, did you conclude that the defendant's truck was indeed the truck that went down 814 at Millpine?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you find out, or were you able to conclude, other than the headlight spread pattern, was that truck also identical to the one he was driving at the Walmart the early morning hours of 12/18?
Yes, it is.
Any further questions?
Recross. Sure.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay. Frederick, you may step down. You wish this witness to be excused.
Please, Judge.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
You're also free to leave, sir. Take your time. Listening card, next witness, please.
Your Honor, this time the state called Cistare for the stand.
Please raise your right hand, place your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. Afternoon, Your Honor.
Please state your full name and spell your last name.
Okay. Peter Cistare, C-E-S-T-A-R-E.
Lieutenant, where are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Horry County Police Department.
And what is your current position?
I'm the lieutenant, the commanding officer of the Crime Scene Investigations Unit, Property and Evidence Section, and a regional drug testing lab.
Okay, and how long have you been at the Horry County Police Department?
Over 16 years. I'm coming into my 17th year now.
Okay, and where were you employed prior to Horry County?
I'm retired from the New York City Police Department, where I was the commanding officer of the Manhattan Bronx Major Case Squad.
Okay, if you don't mind, tell this jury a little bit about your training as you've been in the police department, both New York as well as here in Horry.
Okay, I was originally certified as a police officer by the New York City Police Department, actually by the New York City Housing Police Department. Trained various times each year within that agency, had been sent to several government agencies, FBI, Department of Justice, Treasury, for additional training in various aspects of law enforcement. Retired from New York City, moved down here to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, was employed, gained employment with the Horry County Police Department, and from there they have sent me to a number of forensic schools, including the New York City Medical Examiner's Office, the FBI Academy, Searchy's Forensic Institute, and several other schools and agencies around the country.
Okay, and what was your position in 2013, December of 2013?
Exactly the same as it is now.
Okay.
Since my employment, I have been in charge of those units.
Okay, for 15 years, 16?
17 years, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and did you help with the case we're here today on?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and if you don't mind, start out telling us a little bit about how you got involved.
Okay, it jumps way back to December 20th of 2013. I had been asked by the captain over the Criminal Investigations Division, that's who I report to assist in a missing persons investigation involving a young girl by the name of Heather Elvis. In doing that, I had received information that she had gone missing somewhere around December 18th. It's now December 20th, and I was asked to go to her parents' residence on Sly Fox Trail in the Myrtle Beach area to take a look at a vehicle that belonged to the young missing girl. So I took one of my investigators, Investigator Jill Domagauer, and we responded to Sly Fox Trail.
And Ms. Domagauer, you already testified and showed pictures of the victim's vehicle. Is that what y'all were doing, processing Heather's vehicle?
Yes, ma'am. We went there to look at the vehicle. Bear in mind, at this particular time, this is a missing persons case. We're there to see if we can lend any forensic assistance to the detectives who are also on scene, to see if we could offer them any help as far as what may have happened to her or how she may have come to be missing.
Okay, at that time, nobody knew whether or not a crime had been committed.
That's correct. We were simply there for a missing persons case.
Okay, and after you left her vehicle, where did you go next?
After leaving her vehicle, we did some basic processing to the vehicle, including some touch DNA swabs, some photographs, and so forth. Did an overall cursory review of the vehicle to try and determine occupants that may have been in it or anything of that nature. From there, the information that I was given was that on the night of the 18th, the young girl had gone missing, or the last place they believed her to be was the Peachtree Road boat landing, which is all the way at the end of Peachtree Lane. It's not the one at the big bridge. It basically dead ends into the Waccamaw River. I was told that that's where the vehicle was found on the 18th, and that at that time, the vehicle had been driven back to the house by the young girl's father. So next course of action would be to go to the Peachtree Landing and try and determine if there was anything there that could help lend support to what may have happened to this young girl or you know, that night at the landing.
And when you went to the landing, did you see anything of evidentiary value?
No, there was nothing of evidentiary value. I had gained some information from both the young girl's dad and the patrol officer that had responded the night that the car was found at the landing as to where the car had been parked, specifically how it was positioned. Those are all things that are important because when you pull into a boat landing or when you pull into any area that's got a parking lot, you need to focus on something in particular. You know, I mean, I can look at the whole parking lot, but unless I know specifically where the car is, I'm going to waste a lot of possible important time trying to look at other areas. We did, however, look at the entire boat landing. Part of the urgency of getting there right away was that we had requested some divers to come. So the Horry County Fire Department, the Myrtle Beach Fire Department, DNR, Department of Natural Resources, several other agencies were all sending boats and divers there. So before even though we're 2 days from that time frame, before that parking lot gets further potentially contaminated with vehicles and people tracking through it, we wanted to get a look at it before everybody got there. So it was kind of urgent to get there right away and see that parking facility and the landing and try to determine a direction to start asking the divers to search in.
Did you find any blood or weapon or anything at the landing that
No.
led you to believe a crime had been committed?
No, ma'am, we did not.
Did you find her phone, pocketbook, anything that belonged to her?
No, ma'am, we did not.
Okay. When you left the landing, where did you go next to try to help?
I stayed at the landing for a period of time. I directed my investigator, Jill Domagauer, along with some detectives to respond to Miss Elvis's apartment, the apartment she had been staying in, which was off of River Oaks Drive, also in the Myrtle Beach section. I asked Jill to go along with the detectives to assist them if they came across anything or just to take some photographs for them. I stayed at the landing for a period of time with the divers and with the agencies that came in to assist us. And it was later on that same day that I accompanied some of the detectives from my agency to the Mora's residence over on Highway 814.
Okay, and when you were at the residence, did you take any pictures?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I'm showing you 129 to 150.
Yes, ma'am. These are prints of the digital images that I photographed that day at the residence.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, the state wishes to place 129 to 150 in the evidence and publish at the appropriate time.
The objection. Without objection, states 129 through 150 are admitted each being appropriate.
Thank you, Judge.
Whatever time you guys.
Now, while we're getting that on the screen, I want to ask you, who all was present when you showed up to the defendant's house?
I was there. Lieutenant Chip Squires, who was the lieutenant over investigations at the time. Detective Cobble, I believe, if I may refer to my notes. Let me see what I've got. And I believe Detective Hardy also had responded.
And who was present from the defendant's family?
Tammy Moore was home at the time. Actually, we got there. We're there basically to try and gain information that would help lead us to what happened to this young lady. We knocked on the residence door for Tammy and Sidney Moore. There was no answer at the door. We went kind of adjacent to it is another residence, sits on the same property. That was Tammy's mom and dad. I believe the last name was Kaysen. We went over and knocked on that door. Mr. Kaysen answered the door, came out, spoke to the detectives for a few minutes. I was kind of standing in the background. A short time later, Tammy Moore emerged from the Kaysen house, spoke with the detectives for a short period of time, and they asked if the team of us that were there could go with her into the house to talk and to take a look inside the house if there was anything there that could help us.
Okay, when you first walked up to the house, did you notice anything?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What did you notice?
On the face of the Mora's house, the front of the house, which faces out to a small extension of roadway, it's actually a right-of-way that goes back to a power area there. There were some cameras on the front of her house, what appeared to be like a video-type surveillance camera.
Did those cameras look operable to you?
They were up a distance in the air, height on the house, one at each corner of the house and one up at the center gable of the house. But yes, they appeared to be operable from what I could tell.
Okay, and did you go inside the house with the other detectives?
I did. I specifically asked Tammy Moore if it was okay for me to come in with them and if she would mind if I took some photographs while I was inside the house, to which she agreed and said that that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Now, were there any cameras in the house?
Yes, ma'am, I saw one camera in the house while I was inside.
Okay. Now, did you document in general what you saw in the house in these pictures of 129 to 150?
I took photographs in the house. Problem I had was that seeing the cameras on the outside and seeing the one camera inside, that at that particular time became extremely important to me as to what may have happened and could help us in this investigation. My fear at that point, because we were there under consent to, come on in, you feel free to look around. To some degree, I mean, I wasn't allowed to open cabinets and so forth, but I could look in the doorway of each room or whatever. If I alerted anybody at that point that I believed those cameras were operational in the house, my fear was that we'd lose whatever information may be on them.
Okay, now let me ask you this. When you went in under their consent, at that time, were they suspects?
No.
Was anybody detained in any form or fashion?
No, ma'am.
Now, when you went in and snapped some photographs, were you in there going through closets or going through drawers or going through anything?
No, as I mentioned, we were permitted to come in the house. I was permitted to take pictures with limitations, like standing at the doorway of a room and looking in. Several times I asked if I could go into it. She's like, no, just, from here, from the hallway is fine. But I was pretty much led through the entire residence by Tammy Moore. She was with me the entire time. Tammy's mom and dad had also come into the house, and they were in there as well with the detectives and so forth.
Okay, I want to ask you to step down so you can show this jury what you saw in the home in pictures 129 through 150. And if you don't mind, Lieutenant, by the microphone.
Okay.
Okay, what are we looking at now?
Customarily, anytime I go to take photographs of anything, I try to put some type of reference marker in that photograph. That's a picture of the mailboxes outside the house, and it just simply shows me the addresses that were there. There are 2 residents that sit on the property.
Okay, how about in the next one?
This is the back of a vehicle. It's a black and color Ford F-150 that was parked in the Mora's driveway. The driveway at that part of the house is kind of split by a few palm trees, and as you can see on the lower corner there, some stone and so forth. There's basically like a 2-lane driveway on the Mora side, and then on the other side of those trees is a 2-lane driveway on the Cason side of the property. And that's just documenting the license tag number on the back of the vehicle that was parked in the driveway. That was the only vehicle in front of the Mora's house. Passenger vehicle. There was also a camper there as well.
Okay, let me ask you this. Does this show us kind of where, or some indication of where the truck was bought from?
Yes, ma'am, it does. It shows a Beach Ford tag on the back of it. Most dealerships, as you know, probably looking at your own vehicle, have placed something on the back of the vehicle, as a selling point for their own dealership. And so that basically just shows it's Beach Ford.
Okay. Now what are we looking at here?
Okay, this is standing almost at the street, and that's the black Ford F-150 that I just spoke of, that you just saw the tag on. And then to the right of it, you're seeing their travel trailer or camper that's also parked in that driveway. And there's a lot of other items in and around the front of that camper.
Okay, if you don't mind, when you look close, tell the jury, what is this right here?
There's a shotgun shell there.
And what is
There's some bags of mortar or cement there.
What is that?
Some cleaning solutions and so forth. Just kind of struck me as odd. You know, who leaves things like that? Obviously, you know, open water or whatever, if it rains, you're going to destroy it. Who leaves shotgun shells laying around in their driveway and so forth? It just struck me as odd.
And what was this?
It looks like a tarp, I believe, and there was some rags and stuff over in that area, and a trash can and a couple of buckets and so forth.
Okay, and how about these things down here? Do you know where those are?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay. So the only thing you can decipher is the shotgun shell, the quick mix cement, and the bleach?
Yes, ma'am, that kind of piqued my interest, and that was part of the reason why I took that photograph.
Okay. And did you take some now going further into the home?
I did, yes.
Okay. And now, is this a shot right up front?
It is, and as I mentioned to you, looking at the face of that home, there were what appeared to be 3 distinct cameras on the front of that house. And unfortunately, I couldn't just swing the camera up and focus at, you know, my camera at one of the video cameras. I would have given away the fact that I had seen them. So I'm trying to kind of shoot pictures from my hip as I'm walking along, and in perfect alignment is 2 palm trees that block where cameras are on the front of that house.
Okay, and did you take some pictures inside the house?
I did, yes.
Okay. And what is this showing?
This is inside the home. This is just a laundry area off of the kitchen of the residence.
So here you're just kind of generally documenting,
Yes.
okay, the rooms in the home. Now how about here?
This is the kitchen area and a door that leads out into the back area of the house.
Okay, and again, you're just generally documenting kind of general appearance of the
Yeah,
home.
I was not, you know, not given permission to look through any cabinets or closets or anything of that nature. Just basically whatever doors were open, I could take a photograph of the room from the doorway.
Okay. How about here?
This is the family room, which is immediately adjacent to the kitchen. As you see on the left there, the stool-style chairs. Over that counter would be the kitchen area. So this is the like the family room area of that house.
Okay. And how about here?
All right, coming back, I'm standing almost inside the front door of the house, and when you look to your right, you go through this little den office area, and that's the kitchen behind it and that family room. So if I just walked in the front door of the house and I look to my right, this is what I'm seeing.
Okay. How about here?
This is almost straight ahead of the entry door coming into the residence. This is Tammy and Sidney's bedroom on the first floor of the house.
Okay. How about here?
All right? I'm looking immediately to my left of the front door, and this is a staircase going up. And this photograph is somewhat significant, and you'll see other coloring as we go along, but if I may,
Yes.
just up above here, the roof of the entryway of the house doesn't allow me to see it, but there was a camera at the top of the staircase in that green painted area right at where the crown molding or the ceiling molding would be in the house, looking down the staircase towards the front door.
Okay. And did you go upstairs?
This is from the upstairs now. I'm now up on that landing, and the camera would be just behind where you can see from here.
Okay. Now let me ask you something. This from y'all searching, or this was the way it was on the 20th?
No, ma'am, we were not allowed to search anything. We were just allowed to walk through. I was allowed to walk through with her. It was just Tammy and I at the time, and she walked me through and said, you know, I asked, like I said, I asked her, could I take pictures, you know, inside the house? And she said, yeah, I don't have a problem. I'll let you take a picture from doorways and stuff, but I don't want you going through anything.
How about here?
Again, just a photograph from a doorway upstairs into one of the bedrooms.
Okay. How about here?
Same photograph from one of the upstairs rooms looking into one of the bedrooms.
How about here?
Same thing here. Photograph at the doorway looking into the bedroom.
So now this is the fourth bedroom we've seen?
Yes.
Okay. How
All
about
right, photo from the hallway looking into the bathroom upstairs.
you?
Photo again from the hallway looking into another room upstairs that had a bunch of Legos and stuff in it. Right, this is coming back. This is where I tried to get the camera. Tammy was standing right next to me at the time, and I swung around to say something to her, and I took a picture at the same time, hoping I was going to get the camera at the ceiling line. But right up here at the ceiling line, which I missed in not being able to, you know, look up and focus at it without drawing attention to it, was a small camera.
How about you?
Right, and that's kind of what that camera would view looking down. I took that shot as I was walking down the stairs, and Miss Moore was right behind me. That's a picture from inside, just looking at the two front doors to the residence. This is a picture from that little den office area that leads into the kitchen family room. Looking back, you'll see the front doors to the residence there on the left, the staircase going up, and the master bedroom would be to the right.
Okay.
This is off of the kitchen, small area that had a freezer, microwave in it.
What's up here?
Just some bottles of alcohol, Bailey's Irish Cream, Jim Beam, a few other bottles there. Kind of like a makeshift pantry area, if you will.
Okay. And how about in here?
This is inside that, I'm in what would be the kitchen area, photographing over the counter towards the family room area.
Is that the last picture? All right, Mr. Cistare, if you don't mind, have a seat. Thank you. Lieutenant, as part of crime scene, after you went to the defendant's house, at some point did you also process or document his truck, his Ford 150?
I did some documentation of it, yes. Some of my staff was assigned to search it and so forth. And I also did some photographs of it as well.
Okay, let me ask you this. Did you go inside the Ford 150 the day you were there on 12/20?
No, it was locked, and I was told that there was no keys available for that vehicle.
Okay, so you never went in on 12/20?
No, I specifically asked Miss Moore if I could take a look in the truck, and she said no.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Were you able to look in the truck later in December and early January via search warrant?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And did you at that time document how the truck appeared?
Yes, I did.
And were you able at that time to go through the truck?
Yes.
Okay. And the truck was where when you documented it?
It was at the Horry County Police Department. It was towed there based on a search warrant. One of the initial problems we had was that the toolbox in the bed of the truck was locked. And although the search warrant gave us the ability to break that toolbox open, I told my investigators not to do it, that we would attempt to gain a key from Mr. or Mrs. Moore to be able to open that toolbox. If we weren't able to obtain a key, then we would in fact break the toolbox open. Mr. Moore did provide a key to me at one point, and I was able to unlock the toolbox and photographed inside that box.
You know, I have an objection to one of the photos. I think she's seeking to introduce.
All right, let me have a sidebar. 74 168 are admitted without objection, Mr. Chair. The others are without objection. At 168, the objection has been made, we'll place it on the record at first, but it's admitted subject to that objection.
Mr. Cistare, I want you to look through 151 to 174. Tell me if these are the pictures you took of the defendant's truck at the police department.
Yes, ma'am. These are copies of the digital of that truck that day.
Okay, Your Honor, this they wishes to put 151 and 174 in and published.
I've already ruled on the admissibility of it, so it will be published.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cistare, if you don't mind stepping down, and we'll go through the pictures together. And these pictures were taken after the 20th, correct?
Yes, ma'am. These pictures were taken December 30th, if memory serves me correct. I can look at the sheet, but I believe that's the date. This is at the Horry County Police Department. This is an open outdoor processing bay. It's covered over with a roof where we would customarily tow a vehicle in to process it, take photographs of it, potentially search it, whatever needed to be done.
Okay, and at that time, there was no emblem for Beach Ford on the front?
No, ma'am. That truck is just the way it had been
At their house?
at the house and brought to the police department.
Okay. How about you?
That's just a standard picture. Normally in documenting a vehicle, I go around all sides of it just to document the condition of the vehicle and anything that potentially may be unique about it. This is the passenger side of the vehicle.
And was there any damage?
No.
Okay.
This is the rear of the vehicle showing both the toolbox up in the bed as well as the license plate, South Carolina tag that is the same plate as what I had photographed at the house back on the 20th, some 7 days before.
Okay, and that's just to reconfirm this is the identical truck, the same truck?
Yes, ma'am, that's the truck from the house.
Okay.
That's just a close-up of the tag. That's a picture of the driver's side of the vehicle. Again, I'm kind of walking my way around the vehicle.
Okay, and did you go inside the vehicle?
I did, yes.
Okay.
This is a picture up into the bed to show what the contents were in the bed of the vehicle and to further document the toolbox on the back of the vehicle.
Okay.
This is now with the driver's door open, taking a look inside at the driver's seat and dashboard and console area.
Okay, and was this truck super clean when you got it?
It was pretty remarkably clean.
Okay.
Just pictures of the door pocket on the driver's door and the contents in it.
Okay.
Right, this is a picture behind of the rear passenger compartment of the vehicle, and what you're seeing flipped up is the back seat of the vehicle. In that particular vehicle, the seat's enabled to come up so that you've got storage room if you needed it, or it can come down for passenger seating.
And let me ask you something. Did you flip it up?
No, it was up already.
Okay, so when you took it from the house, all the seats were flipped up?
I don't know if the seats were flipped up when it came from the house. This is the way I found it that day.
Okay. I want you to look again. Does that look clean to you?
I mean, for the most part, it's somewhat clean inside that vehicle. There's items scattered around in the back of it, but for the most part, the vehicle, the exterior of the vehicle and the surfaces inside were pretty clean.
Okay.
Again, just looking at one of the door panels, the door pocket inside the vehicle. Right? Again, looking at the vehicle and the door pocket, the floorboard in the back. And as you can see, I mean, there's a considerable amount of what looks like small debris and whatever on the floor in that vehicle at the time.
Okay.
Right, again, looking at the other door panel on the passenger side, the rear door.
Okay.
Looking inside the front passenger compartment of the vehicle. And again, there's items scattered about on the floor and the seat in the console area.
Okay.
Looking at that passenger door side pocket. That was a picture of a pass that was inside the vehicle. I documented that just to show it was a state park pass. That's a handicap placard that was in the vehicle. Again, I documented that for the placard number and to see who the placard was assigned to through DMV.
Okay, who's that picture of?
That's Tammy Moore.
Okay.
Right? Another picture looking at the tailgate of the truck from the bed area. The first picture was looking into the bed. This one is looking to see the tailgate of the truck. This was in one of the pockets in the back, and it was a box of ammo.
And is what you saw in front of the camper, is that a 20 gauge? You don't know? Okay.
I don't know the gauge. I just saw it on the ground.
Okay. And this was where in the truck?
This was, I believe it's in the back towards where the seat is. There's some pocket areas back there. I'm not completely sure without going back through the inside pictures, but it was in plain view within the truck.
Okay, go back a few pictures. Right. Right there.
Okay.
I want you to look at this picture.
Yeah, there's a track right in here by the back seat, and that's where the ammo is, right down in the bottom of it. That track, if the seat were down, you would not see that track area there. But with the seat up, you could see it.
Okay, now I want to ask you something. What is this here?
That's just a hairbrush, cups, some papers, and so forth.
Okay, now here's what, like a candy wrapper?
Yes.
Okay, and what is this stuff here?
That looks like chips or parts of cookies or crackers or something.
Okay. I mean, does this truck look like it was just washed and cleaned yesterday?
No.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Take this back to where we were, Ms. Ruth, please. And as we're going through, there's papers on the floor, there's these shotgun shells. Now, they are in a compartment. If you put the seat down, you would not see them. Is that correct?
That's correct. If the
Okay.
seat were down, it would cover those and you wouldn't see them.
Okay. Now, what is this?
That was like a receipt book that you would use if you had a business and you were giving somebody a receipt for work or something that you performed. That shot's a little out of focus. There is another one.
I don't know about. Can you tell who that receipt is for?
Yes.
Who?
It says Sticky Fingers, Myrtle Beach.
And can you tell the date?
It looks like 11/16 of 2013.
Okay. How about the next one?
That one is 11/15 of 2013, also to Sticky Fingers.
Okay.
11/18 of 2013, Longhorn Steakhouse. And these are, obviously, they're work tickets that Mr. Moore, or I would assume Mr. Moore was providing. It just,
Whose name's up here?
Sidney Moore, and it describes loose stonework on the north wall, secure all parking stops.
Okay, whose name's down here on the ticket?
Sidney Moore.
Okay. And this is receipts for work he's done.
Obviously, that's something that he's giving the store to show what work he's completed there.
Okay.
This one is dated 12/21 of 13 to Sticky Fingers. And again, it's secure hood and stainless screws, remove roof panels for a hood guy. So I'm assuming that's some type of work inside the business.
Okay. Go back. Now, did you ever see a ticket for 12/17 or 12/18?
No, ma'am. The tickets that, the photographs that you see were the tickets that have been filled out.
Okay. So, and did you photograph it just like you were standing there going through the ticket book?
Yes, ma'am. I was flipping the pages and taking a picture as I was doing that.
Okay.
But this is just the manufacturer's label that's customarily on the inside of the driver's door or the frame around the door that shows the production date of the vehicle. What's important to me is the vehicle identification number, or what we would all call the VIN number on the vehicle. And that's, basically we document that to verify what vehicle we're physically in, should the plate not match the vehicle. In this case, both matched.
Okay. If you don't mind, have a seat, Lieutenant. I got a couple more questions.
Okay.
Did you eventually get into the toolbox?
Yes, I did.
And keep that in there.
Say what, so while you're doing that, we're going to let the jury take a break, let you go to your jury room, do not begin your deliberations, don't discuss the case, please.